According to a recent report, a lot of Donald Trump's staffers and insiders are starting to grow increasingly concerned over the fact that Donald Trump would just rather sit around golfing and whining on social media all day than actually getting out there in this country and campaigning. Sorry, confused complaining with campaigning. But for Donald Trump, aren't they really the same thing? Because his whole campaign is to just complain. But anyway, that snafu aside, according to a report from the Washington Post, this all started the week of the Democratic convention. And what had happened was that Donald Trump was apparently talking to his staff, and his idea was to just kind of let the convention go while he went out every day golfing. Because he didn't want to do anything. He just wanted to be the old retired guy on the golf course. And his staff, according to this report, had to actually convince him to get off the golf course a little bit. Why don't you go out there and, I don't know, campaign, because you're getting crushed by these folks on the left. Let me read you this from the report. Aides did not want a situation where he was watching the convention every night, getting angry, and then just golfing all day and stewing, according to people who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private interactions. Trump also had grown annoyed with the news coverage that depicted him as not working as hard as his opponent, one person who talked to him said. This, in turn, led them to get him off the golf course and back on the road, where he has been holding press conferences where he's supposed to talk about policy, but often turns into personal attacks on Harris, much to the dismay of his campaign. So, oops. You wanted him off the golf course, like, hey, dude, you got to get out there and you got to start campaigning and you got to talk about issues, right? You got to talk policy. Look, we've got these nice props. We got some cereal boxes here. It's all going to be awesome. Fine, I'll do it. I'll put the clubs away for a day or two. And then he just goes off the rails and make things so much worse for these folks. Like, if they weren't working for Donald Trump, I would feel bad for them. But at the same time, I feel like these aides, these staffers, these insiders, all these people that speak to the media, they act as if they never knew who Donald Trump was. You know, like, we can't get him off the golf course. Who could have predicted this? Oh, I don't know. Everybody? Donald Trump averaged one golf trip at least every 3.5 days while he was actually president. Like, while he's supposed to be running the country, he's golfing twice a week at least. Sometimes he would go golfing every day. So for a guy that, doesn't really have a job, to spend his days on the golf course, which he loves, it's his favorite thing, like, why are you acting surprised that that is happening? Why are you acting surprised that he's not able to talk about policy or stay on a message? Trump, through the 9 years he has been on the national political stage, he's been on the public stage decades longer than that, but for 9 years, he has been on the political stage. And there has not been a single moment in those 9 years where he's stayed on message. There has not been a single speech this man has ever given, whether it was as president or as a candidate, that hasn't somehow mentioned something completely insane. I challenge you to find a single speech, rally, interview, whatever, where Trump didn't say something that a normal person would say, that's crazy. I don't think you could do it. Because that is who this guy is. So for these staffers to sit there and act like this is mind-blowing that he's like this, where have you been for the last 9 years? This is who the guy is. But the story goes even further. According to one former aide who served in the White House under the former president, Trump has lost the plot. The stakes for Trump this election are arguably the highest they've ever been. His criminal cases don't go away if he loses, yet he seems to be phoning it in, running a remarkably low-energy, undisciplined campaign, explained Alyssa Farah Griffin, a former Trump spokesperson. From spending days off the campaign trail golfing to coming up with frankly weak nicknames like Kamabla, it feels like he's lost his mojo. Well, I'll tell you one of the things that's happened here, folks. When Donald Trump first started running for political office, he was in his 60s. Granted, he was in his late 60s, but he had a lot of energy. I will give Trump full credit for that. Like, for being an out of shape older guy in his late 60s, Trump had more energy than we have seen from some candidates in their 40s back in 2015 and 2016. And then he became president and took a bit of a toll on him, but he still had a little bit of energy in 2020. He was mad about COVID, of course, couldn't have the big crowds he was used to. But then he completely went insane after losing the 2020 election. Not that he was, fully sane prior to that, but it made him go insane. And then all the legal troubles piled up. All the stress of everything has taken its toll on him, the way it would any other person. I'm not saying that as a partisan thing or as somebody who doesn't like Trump. Go through all of that stress, which you created yourself, by the way. But it's going to take its toll on you. It's going to drain you. It's going to zap you. You're not going to have any energy left. And that's what we're dealing with right now with Donald Trump. He is a guy who, when you see his rallies these days, he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be talking to these people. And the audience feeds off that energy. They look like they don't want to be there either. Last week, the Harris HQ campaign account on Twitter put out a new video attack ad against Donald Trump that put together a supercut of all the people from recent rallies behind Donald Trump on stage that were yawning, looking around, being bored. And that's the feeling in the air. But the feeling in the air comes from the person at the podium. So when Trump shows up there with no energy, no desire, no drive, God, I'd rather be golfing, the audience feeds off that. But I also got to say, back to the whole staffer issue, part of this is your fault. Because I want to hit on this once again because I do think this is important. A couple weeks ago, we had that report from Rolling Stone where the staffers admitted they're not telling Donald Trump about some of the worst polling data that they're getting in. They are hiding how bad his numbers is and not telling him the truth. So, to a small degree, when you have a candidate that's out there saying, I don't need to go out and about. I can spend the day on the golf course. I'm clearly doing well in the campaign. But they think they're doing well in the campaign because the staffers are lying to them, telling them, hey, don't worry, you're doing great. So, again, part of this is the staffer's fault. If you want him to take the campaign seriously, you kind of do need to be honest with him and tell him, hey, man, you're losing. You're losing in every poll. You're losing in conservative-leaning polls. You're losing in our internal polling. You have to get out there or else we're all going to be out of a job on November 6th. That is the message you have to give him. It's not a message he wants to hear, but if you want him to get up off the couch, I'm sorry, that's a J.D. Vance reference. If you want him to get off the golf course, probably need to start telling him that everything is going really badly for him. Hi, everyone. This here is little Athena. And Athena would like to know why you haven't subscribed to Fair and Balanced yet. So please, don't let Athena down. Subscribe today.